When I had a stroke at 60, the entire fabric of my family shifted overnight. Their indifference cut through me like a cold sea wind. My name is Linda Whitmore. I lived in a small suburban house just outside San Francisco, California. That morning, I had woken up like any other day, making my way to the kitchen for a cup of coffee. I had just wrapped my fingers around the mug when it slipped through my trembling hand and shattered on the floor. I froze. The entire left side of my body had gone numb. I couldn't move. My mouth drooped awkwardly and my words came out slurred and broken. Drool trickled down my chin as I screamed silently over and over in my head. Help me. Somebody help me. But no one heard. Fortunately, my husband, Donald, was home at the time. He rushed in at the sound of the crash and found me crumpled on the floor. He immediately shook our daughter Amanda awake and called 911 as he fumbled for his phone. The ambulance rushed me to United Hospital in the San Francisco Bay Area. Amanda sat beside me, her face tight with worry. My son Jason arrived a few hours later. I had foolishly thought that this illness might draw them closer together, even if only temporarily. But the moment the doctor left the room, they began arguing. The doctor had explained that it was a mild stroke, caught early enough that with proper care and rehabilitation, I had a good chance of partial recovery. The key, he emphasized, was that I would need family support during my stay. I felt a flicker of relief. Recovery was possible. I had some savings, insurance would cover most of the expenses, and I wouldn't be too much of a burden. How naive I was. Before the echo of the diagnosis had faded, Donald stood up, adjusting his jacket as he spoke. I promised Ruby I'd rehearse with her this week for the August dance. I'll be staying at her place to practice. You kids better step up and do your part. The way he said you kids, as if he weren't family, stung deeper than the stroke itself. Without so much as a glance back at me, he walked out. Amanda rolled her eyes and snapped, I'm always the one taking care of Mom. It's your turn now. Jason shot back instantly, and how much has she done for you? Free rent, babysitting your kids, paying your bills. Don't act like you're doing her a favor. Amanda sneered, not missing a beat. Oh, like she's been awful to you? Who helped you get that car? Who fronted the down payment on your house? You're her son too, Jason. Or have you forgotten you owe her just as much? They argued like enemies, trading accusations in front of my hospital bed, fighting not over me, but over who was more used by me. I couldn't hold back my tears. They knew how much I had given to each of them. Yet neither was willing to give anything back. And then it happened. A sour smell rose from my body. I had lost control of my bladder. The argument died instantly. The air thickened with a heavy, unbearable silence. I tried to lift my hand to cover my face to hide my shame, but my arm wouldn't move. All I could do was sob helplessly, my eyes darting between them, pleading silently for help. Jason looked away, grimacing. He stood up abruptly. I've got a meeting to prepare for. Sorry, I have to go, he muttered. Without another word, he hurried out of the room. Amanda, fuming, barked after him. Coward. All you ever do is run away. Then she turned to me, forcing a brittle smile onto her face. Don't worry, Mom. I'll make sure he comes back. But she too spun on her heel and left. The door swung shut behind her. And just like that, the world fell silent. I lay alone in that hospital bed, the dampness beneath me, the hollow silence of the hallway, and the numbing cold that had settled deep into my bones. All of it swallowed me whole, like a frozen lake in the dead of winter. Ah! I tried to cry out, but with my twisted mouth I couldn't form a coherent word. All I could do was watch helplessly as one by one they left. My pants were soaked through. I lay there, unmoving, like a piece of discarded furniture no one wanted to claim. Everyone in the room, other patients, their families, had witnessed the disaster of my family's meltdown. No one said a word, but their glances, heavy with pity, pierced deeper than any spoken judgment. I had never felt so ashamed, so humiliated, so utterly alone. At last, a caregiver from the bed next to mine couldn't bear it anymore. She let out a soft sigh, walked over to my side, and without a trace of disgust, gently helped me change into dry clothes. She even rummaged through her own bag and pulled out a spare cotton towel, carefully slipping it beneath my head. There you go, sweetheart. Now your pillow won't get wet, she murmured, her voice as soft and warm as the San Francisco evening breeze. My vision blurred with tears. The gratitude swelled so fiercely in my chest that I couldn't speak. I could only lock my eyes onto hers, desperately willing her to feel my silent thank you. Just as she finished adjusting the sheets, Amanda reappeared. Jason was nowhere to be seen. Amanda strolled in with a bright, breezy smile, like she had just finished a workout session. She plopped herself down beside my bed and chirped, "Mom, I thought about it, and I decided it's better if I'm the one to take care of you. I'm way more thoughtful than my brother, aren't I?" It sounded sweet enough on the surface, but even as she spoke she was already pulling her phone from her bag, her fingers flying across the screen. The nurse had instructed her to help reposition me regularly. Amanda had nodded dutifully, but the moment the nurse left she went right back to scrolling through Instagram and short videos. She put me in an adult diaper but often only changed it once a day. My skin began to itch, especially down below, an unbearable crawling itch like ants biting into me. But I had no strength to even scratch. All I could do was blink desperately at the kind caregiver across the room, praying with everything I had that she would notice and come to my rescue. It wasn't because I couldn't afford better care. I had savings tucked away from my retirement fund. Medicare would have covered part of it. I could have easily hired a full-time private caregiver. But Amanda waved the idea off. "Mom, do you know how much a private nurse costs?" she scoffed. "Besides, no stranger can take care of you better than your own daughter." If she truly cared, I wouldn't have been lying there, itching so badly I thought I'd lose my mind. Later the doctor called Amanda outside. By then I was recovering, though painfully slowly. My mouth had started to straighten a little. I could manage a few broken words if I tried hard enough. Amanda stormed back into the room minutes later, her face thunderous. She marched right up to my bed and announced, "Mom, we're checking out." My eyes widened in disbelief. "You're not gonna get better here," she said like she was explaining it to a child. "Strokes leave all kinds of permanent damage. It's better to go home and recover naturally. I'll take good care of you, promise." The doctor followed behind her, trying to intervene. "Mrs. Whitmore is making progress," he said firmly. "With continued rehabilitation, there's a good chance she'll regain much of her independence. Going home now would undo everything we've achieved so far." Amanda exploded. She shouted at him, "You people are just trying to bleed us dry. My mom's only been here a little over a week and the bill's already over $13,000. Are we supposed to sell the house just to pay for this?" It was crystal clear. She didn't want to spend another dime, even though it was my money, not hers. And because she was my next of kin and held power of attorney, she had the legal right to discharge me. And she did. I summoned every ounce of energy I had left, forcing out a few broken words. "I want to stay." But she didn't even look at me. It was as if I hadn't spoken at all. Soon enough Amanda brought me back home. The bedroom was exactly as I had left it, but once she dumped me there, any pretense of caring vanished. Her so-called care consisted of delivering 2 meals a day, one in the morning and one in the evening. Lunch. She was at work. It wasn't her concern. Changing my adult diaper depended on her mood. Wiping me down, turning me to avoid bed sores. Those things never happened. There was no clock on the wall, no curtains drawn open. After a while I couldn't even tell whether it was day or night. I started to feel like I was rotting away, quietly, invisibly, forgotten by this house, abandoned by the world. Until one day a pair of small soft hands gripped my wrist. "Grandma." It was Caleb, Amanda's youngest, my 4-year-old grandson, the little boy I had raised with my own hands. "Grandma, why won't you play with Caleb anymore?" He tilted his head, his voice sweet and high, so much like Amanda's when she was a little girl. I forced a smile and reached out, trembling, trying to stroke his face. "Grandma, Mommy said when you die I can have this room for my toys." "Grandma, what does die mean?" My hand, stretched out to touch him, dropped helplessly in midair. My whole body started to shake uncontrollably. Caleb was the spitting image of Amanda at that age. Soft cheeks, wide eyes, that lilting baby voice calling me Mommy, over and over again. And now, that same little girl was waiting for me to die, carving up my life before I was even gone. I struggled to keep my face composed, but grief crawled across every inch of it. Caleb must have sensed something. He turned and bolted from the room, frightened. Silence crashed back down around me like a closing tomb. That evening Amanda hauled me up, half dragging, half shoving me, and fed me dinner with a fake, brittle smile plastered on her face. "Mom, where do you keep the bank accounts? The house deed, you know, all that stuff." I choked on a mouthful of food. Tears sprang to my eyes, but Amanda didn't even flinch. She didn't care if I lived or died, she cared only about what I might leave behind. I said nothing. I just stared at her, cold and hard. She didn't seem bothered. Instead, she turned and started rifling through my room like she was picking through a thrift store. She tore open the closet, tossing my neatly folded clothes across the room like they were garbage. "Seriously, Mom? You were hiding a bracelet like it's some kind of treasure." She scoffed. "This junk isn't even worth anything anymore," she muttered to herself, ripping open the small cloth pouch I had hidden deep at the head of the bed. When she found only an old silver bracelet inside, she sneered with disappointment and flung it aside. A sharp clatter echoed off the floor. I watched it tumble across the room. The bracelet my mother had given me, the last thing I had left from her, Amanda's great-grandmother. I had never let anyone touch it. Not once. Somehow, from a place deep inside me, strength surged up. My right hand clenched into a fist so tight it felt like I could crush the air itself. The room was thick with dust. No one had cleaned it in ages. I started coughing violently, thick phlegm clogging my throat like a dead snake I couldn't force out. Amanda wrinkled her nose and took a step back. "God, Mom, could you be any more disgusting?" I finally hacked up the mucus, wheezing so hard it sounded like an old bellows. Amanda said nothing. She just kept rifling through drawers and cabinets until the room looked like it had been hit by a hurricane. At last she slammed the door and stormed out. I sat there, gasping, surrounded by scattered clothes and the silver bracelet lying far out of reach. I tried to push myself up. Instead, I lost balance and toppled onto the floor. My left side was dead weight. My right hand clutched the bracelet to my chest as if it were the last patch of pure ground in a battlefield of ruin. From the living room, I heard muffled voices. Amanda was on the phone, speaking in a casual, almost cheerful tone. "Jason, Mom's pretty much done for. Just a matter of time now. We'll be free soon." She laughed lightly. "Dad's too busy dancing with that old hag to care about her." Sweat dripped from my hairline onto the hardwood floor, leaving dark streaks across the wood. I braced my right hand against the doorframe, my face pressed against the ground, biting down hard on my own breath to keep from sobbing aloud. Tears spilled out anyway. "She's probably crying," Amanda said lazily into the phone. "Let her. It's not like she can do anything else anymore." And at that moment my heart finally broke. Not just cracked. It shattered into pieces so small I knew it would never be whole again. I lay there all night, motionless, my mind wandering back over the past 60 years of my life. I tried to pinpoint what terrible sin I had committed to end up like this. But no matter how hard I thought, I couldn't find a single crime. All I remembered was being the woman who gave up her career for her children, the woman who swallowed her pride for the sake of family, the woman who leapt into fire the moment someone cried, "Mom." At dawn, Amanda finally noticed me still lying on the floor. She dragged me back into bed, muttering under her breath, "Mom, what are you doing down there? So gross." She shoved a peeled hard-boiled egg into my mouth, then immediately launched back into her old routine. "Mom, seriously, where did you put the house deed?" I ignored her. She got irritated. "Look, it's not like it matters. Sooner or later all the stuff will belong to Jason and me anyway. Why not just hand it over now?" So I said nothing. Rolling her eyes, she slammed the door and left. After she was gone, I spent a long time inching my hand under the bed, dragging out the backup cell phone I had hidden there. Hands trembling, I snapped the battery in and dialed my husband's number. "Linda? I'm busy rehearsing right now," he snapped. "Call Amanda or Jason, will you?" Before he hung up, I caught a woman's laugh echoing in the background. Helpless, I dialed another number. "Diane, come get me at noon. Take me to the hospital." When the words left my mouth, I exhaled in one long, shuddering breath. Diane Harris had been my closest friend for decades. We were each other's emergency contact, the kind of friends who had keys to each other's homes. She once told me, "Linda, if you ever stop answering your phone, I'm busting your door down." And she meant it. That day, without asking questions, she jumped into her car with her son and came straight to get me. She drove me back to United Hospital in San Francisco. "Sweetheart, what on earth happened to you?" Diane asked, standing by my ER bed, her eyes already red. Finally, someone who wanted to hear me speak. Someone who genuinely cared. Word by word, I poured out everything. The humiliation, the fear, the cold betrayal. Diane sat by my side, her hand resting on my shoulder, tears streaming down her face as she listened. Before I could even finish, Amanda and Jason's calls started pouring in. I waved them off, nodding at Diane to answer for me. "Mom, where are you?" Amanda snapped through the line. "You know I had to come home from work and search the whole house for you? Could you just not make everything so difficult?" Diane raised an eyebrow and held the phone away from her ear, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "I'm the one who brought your mother to the hospital. Got a problem with that?" Diane's temper was legendary in our neighborhood. Her voice alone could make grown men shrink. On the other end, Amanda went dead silent. After a few seconds, she tried again, softer this time. "Mom's illness. It's not like it can be cured. Keeping her in the hospital just wastes money. I was just thinking maybe." "That's none of your business," Diane snapped. "From now on, I'll be handling everything concerning your mother." And with that, she hung up without another word. She patted my hand. "Don't worry, Linda. I'm not going anywhere." I nodded and insisted she help me hire a full-time private caregiver. She did. Found me a wonderful Mexican lady, neat and efficient, with kind hands and a voice like warm honey. I never expected it, but those days in the hospital turned out to be the most peaceful, joyful stretch of my life in years. Not once did my children visit, and strangely I didn't miss them at all. Every day Diane brought little treats I loved. Fresh raisin muffins, warm creamy chicken soup, homemade caramel pudding. We spent hours chatting in the tiny corner of my hospital balcony, sometimes laughing so loudly that nurses would come by just to join in. I even asked the caregiver to help me buy a new smartphone. One afternoon I went on a little spree, ordering myself a basket of fresh fruits and an armful of flowers. When Diane opened the bags, her mouth dropped open. "Are you crazy, Linda? You finally lost it. Took you 60 years, but you finally learned how to spoil yourself." I laughed. For so long I had pinched every penny, saving, always saving, for my children. Looking back now, what a fool I had been. They were never worth it. With the stress lifted, my spirits soared, and my body began healing faster than anyone expected. Even the doctors marveled during their rounds. "Recovering 90% of your function after a stroke? That's practically unheard of," one said, shaking his head in amazement. A few weeks later I was discharged from the hospital. Standing at my own front door I felt nothing. No warmth, no relief. The house was empty. No one had come to pick me up. Inside, the bedroom had been rearranged. Children's toys were scattered everywhere. One glance and I knew Amanda had been busy while I was gone. I didn't get angry. I simply gathered up everything that didn't belong to me and piled it all in the center of the living room. That evening Amanda finally came home. When she saw me, she froze for a second, then flashed a dazzling smile and shoved a bag of groceries into my hands. "Mom, you're back. I've been dying for your roast chicken." I used to cook every night for her when she first moved back in. I'd felt sorry for how tired she was after work. I took care of her meals, raised her kid, even washed her laundry without a second thought. But not this time. I tossed the grocery bag right back into her arms. "You think I owe you something? You don't have hands to cook your own meals." It was probably the first time I ever truly raised my voice at her. She blinked, stunned, then pouted and stomped off into the kitchen. A few minutes later I heard loud, deliberate chopping sounds. Meant for my ears, no doubt. I flipped through TV channels, barely glancing up. I called out casually, "Don't ruin my wooden cutting board. That thing's been with me for over 20 years. There was a brief silence. Then, "Oh no." Amanda rushed out, holding up a bleeding finger. "Mom, I hurt myself," she cried, waving her hand dramatically, expecting me to drop everything and fuss over her. I barely looked up. I simply adjusted the remote controls on the coffee table and said, "Handle it yourself. I'm not a doctor." I caught a glimpse of my cutting board, split into 3 pieces, and my kitchen knife now chipped at the edge. I sighed, but not for her little cut. I mourned the loss of my old, faithful tools. Those things had been part of my life for decades. Amanda bandaged her tiny wound and kept parading her finger in front of me, fishing for sympathy. He thought I would melt. I just looked at her and let out a dry, mirthless laugh. Did she really think I owed her anything? "Mom," she ventured, a little hesitant now. "You've changed. Since you came back from the hospital." I smiled thinly. "I figured something out." He blinked, curious. "What?" "In this world," I said, locking eyes with her, my gaze razor sharp, "you can't rely on anyone. The only person you can count on is yourself. She flinched, turning her head away, unable to meet my eyes. But the more I looked at her, the more disgusted I felt. You should find another place to live, I said calmly. She stared at me as if she hadn't heard correctly. Amanda owned a small one-bedroom condo in the city. She wasn't homeless. She had once claimed she moved back in to keep me company. The truth was she just wanted free room and board. Mom, you're kicking me out? I'm your daughter, she yelled. Then she grabbed Caleb and shoved him into my arms. Mom, you're really going to send your little angel away too? Caleb, go hug Grandma. Caleb cuddled into me with a soft, "Gran'm, please," and my heart did soften for a second. Amanda thought she had won. A smile was just starting to creep onto her lips when I spoke again. If you don't move, I'll call a moving company for you. The smile died instantly. Desperate, she tried to push Caleb onto me again, hoping guilt would change my mind. I'll admit it, my heart was never made of stone. But I had finally learned. I would not let my kindness be used as a weapon against me ever again. I looked her dead in the eye, my voice colder now. Amanda, tell me, what exactly do I owe you? She blinked rapidly, her face crumpling into a mock pout. Mom, how can you say that? I didn't rush. I spoke slowly, each word sharp and clear. Caleb is your child. You should be the one caring for him. I helped you out of love, not obligation. Starting today, I won't be your babysitter anymore. I stopped cooking for them. I only cooked simple meals for myself. The food I liked. Without anyone else to cater to, I felt lighter, freer than I had in decades. I had always thought living alone would be hard. It wasn't. Amanda tried several times to mend things. She would shove Caleb at me, hoping I'd cave. I didn't. I just turned the TV volume up louder. After a few days, she was on the verge of a breakdown. One evening, she stood in the kitchen doorway, fuming, Caleb tugging on her hand. She pointed at the table with disgust. Mom, you're not going to babysit, fine. But could you at least make something edible? This bland crap. Who's supposed to eat it? I looked up at her. The doctor told me to stick to a light diet. I'm just following instructions. If you want something else, make it yourself. I took another sip of my hot broth and added, by the way, when exactly are you moving out? She inhaled sharply, trying to compose herself. Mom, this is your home and my home too. I'm not leaving. She shifted tactics, laying it on thick. You're my mother. If you don't help me, no one will. There was a time when those words would have cracked my heart. Not anymore. I pulled out my phone, called a moving company, booked the service, paid for it, and requested expedited handling. All in one swift motion. Not long after, 2 movers appeared at the door. Amanda panicked, rushing to block their way. This is all my stuff. Who gave you permission to touch it? The movers hesitated, unsure what to do. I calmly opened a drawer, pulled out the property deed and waved it in the air. The house is mine. She's just a temporary resident. I'm asking her to leave. This is an urgent order. I'll throw in an extra $50 tip. The movers got to work immediately. Amanda clutched Caleb and screamed, Mom, are you insane? You're kicking me out? I'm your daughter. I turned my back on her without a word. No matter how hard she pounded on the door, no matter how loudly she cried and screamed, I didn't respond. After Amanda and Caleb were gone, the house finally fell silent. I sat on the sofa, staring out at the sunlight pouring through the balcony windows, feeling a strange sense of disorientation. This was the first time in decades that I had carved out a life entirely for myself. For the first time, I could ask myself a real question. What do I want to do? And the answer was, so much. I opened my laptop and browsed the website for San Francisco Community College. Enrollment, payment, course selection. I handled it all in one sitting. I wasn't concerned about graduating. I just wanted to reclaim a dream I had abandoned long ago. Learning wasn't easy at first. My brain was slower, my eyes tired easily, but I had never felt so alive. One afternoon after class, I walked slowly home. As I turned onto my street, I spotted Jason standing at my front door. I had changed the locks long ago. Jason fumbled with his old, useless key, trying again and again to get in. I approached, unlocked the door with my new key and let him in. The moment he stepped inside, his eyes zeroed in on the backpack slung over my shoulder. He rummaged through it and pulled out a stack of enrollment papers. Mom, you're signing up for community college? He asked, disbelief dripping from his voice. I nodded. He frowned like I was a child causing trouble. Mom, you're not exactly young anymore. Wouldn't it make more sense to stay home, take care of your grandkids, do some housework? Why waste money chasing stuff like this? He paused, then added, Amanda told me you're acting like a rebellious teenager. I didn't believe her at first. But you really went and did it. Mom, why don't you just move in with us? You can cook and help out. It'd make more sense. He said it like it was the most natural thing in the world, as if my sole purpose in life was to serve them. I couldn't help but laugh, sharp, cold. Do I owe you anything? I shot back. I snatched my enrollment papers from his hands. I spend my own money. How is that your business? Who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? Jason's face darkened. He muttered under his breath. I'm just worried you'll get scammed. I'm your son. If I don't look out for you, who will? I stared at him, my voice dropping, ice cold now. Where was that concern when I was lying in a hospital bed? The words hung between us like nails hammered into the air. Jason dropped his head, saying nothing. I didn't know what he was trying to achieve, and I didn't care. Maybe I really was going through a late-in-life rebellion. But God, it felt good. Living alone. Doing whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. Why had I spent so many years being their servant? Jason kept rambling in the living room, nagging and lecturing. I nodded along absently, pretending to listen, but in truth I didn't register a single word. When he realized he couldn't guilt trip or bully me anymore, he finally left, muttering angrily under his breath. The door clicked shut behind him. And in that moment I felt lighter than air, like a lobster finally free of its old, cracked shell. I was enjoying my life at home so much that when Donald suddenly showed up at the door, I didn't even react at first. Hey, old lady. I'm back. He shouted across the room, dragging in a massive bag and dropping it at my feet. I glanced down. The bag was stuffed with dirty laundry reeking of stale sweat. I wrinkled my nose in disgust, picked up the bag without a word and tossed it right back at him. Wash it yourself. Don't expect me to do everything for you. He stared at me wide-eyed as if seeing a total stranger. After a few stunned seconds he scowled and kicked the bag right back toward me. You're my wife. If you won't do my laundry, what good are you? I didn't bother replying. I just turned around calmly and shut the door in his face. We had been sleeping in separate bedrooms for years anyway, ever since the kids grew up. In hindsight, maybe that was a blessing. I didn't have to see his perpetually sour face every day. I returned to my desk, pulled out my thick textbook and started reading. From behind the door, Donald's voice bellowed non-stop. Linda. Where's dinner? Linda. I'm out of my meds. Go get me some more. Linda. Where's my Latin dance outfit? I gripped my pen tightly, forcing myself not to roll my eyes so hard they fell out of my head. Was this man crippled? Could he not put on socks without me? It was almost absurd. For years I had lived like this, thinking it was normal. Now seeing it through new eyes, it made my skin crawl. Sighing, I finally went into the kitchen and whipped up a simple dinner. Of course, the moment he took a bite, the complaints started. What is this garbage? Tastes like crap. Why don't you learn from Ruby? Her cooking's 100 times better than yours. Ruby, his beloved dance partner. She was around his age, had been widowed about 7 years ago. She used to be a professional dance instructor and now taught senior citizens at the local community center. Donald had gotten hooked on dancing because of her. He had tried to drag me along too, but my back problems made it impossible. After that, it was like a switch flipped. From then on, in his eyes, I couldn't do anything right. I didn't dress as nicely as Ruby. I didn't cook as well. I wasn't as graceful. And of course I didn't know how to dance. He would pick at me constantly, using every conversation to knock me down a little further. I ate the last bite of my meal in silence, washed my own dishes. And then, right in front of him, I scooped his half-eaten dinner straight into the trash. I scrubbed my plate, wiped the table clean, and without so much as a glance back, headed for my room. Behind me, I heard him roar in outrage. Have you lost your damn mind? I wasn't finished eating. But no matter how loudly he shouted, how furiously he barked orders, I didn't give him so much as a glance. Not anymore. Donald wasn't the type to back down easily. He dug in and played dirty, letting dirty laundry pile up, dishes stack up in the sink, and the whole house reek of sour, rotting food. He thought if he just waited long enough, I'd crack and clean everything up like I always had. But this time, every dish was dirty. Every pot crusted over. The kitchen smelled like a garbage pit. And still I didn't move. After a few days, when there wasn't a single clean plate left in the house, Donald swaggered to the kitchen doorway, arms crossed over his chest, grinning smugly. "See? Told you. You always come crawling back," he said, shaking his head and flashing that smug smile. "Linda, you should take a page from Ruby's book. Now that woman knows how to treat a man." I let out a sharp, humorless laugh, picked up a handful of utensils and tossed them loudly into the sink. "If Ruby's so wonderful," I said coldly, "why don't you go live with her?" Our marriage had been arranged by our parents. Before the wedding, Donald and I had met only a handful of times, barely enough to learn each other's favorite colors, let alone build a future. And yet we were shoved hand in hand into the church, expected to make it work. The sweetness, the bitterness, the countless heartaches, I swallowed them all by myself. No one had ever asked me, "Do you want this?" They only told me, "This is what you should do." For 40 years in Donald's eyes, I had never been enough. Not pretty enough. Not smart enough. Not good enough. In the past I swallowed my pride, told myself to endure. But not this time. Donald's face twisted with anger. His voice rose, sharp and ugly. "If I hadn't taken pity on you, I would have been with someone else years ago. You think anyone else would want you? You're ugly and stupid. Divorce." The word struck my mind like a lightning bolt. I had never seriously considered it before. Never even dared to whisper it to myself. Growing up, my parents drilled lesson after lesson into me. Start working early so you're not a burden. So I skipped college and joined the workforce. This man is a good match. Marry him. So I married Donald. A woman's job is to serve her husband and children. The family is your whole life. So I lived for them and never for myself. 40 years had passed before I realized. I had never once made a decision purely for myself. A surge of unstoppable energy rose inside me. "Fine," I said, the words tumbling out before I could even think. "Let's get divorced." Donald scoffed, thinking I was throwing another empty tantrum. "Linda, stop being ridiculous. As long as you behave yourself, I'm not going anywhere." He said it like he was the one doing me a favor. Like I couldn't possibly survive without him. I stood up slowly, leveled my gaze at him and enunciated each word clearly. "Donald Whitmore, I want a divorce." I watched his mouth fall open in shock. And deep in my chest I felt it. A breeze sweeping through the cracked open doors of a prison I had built around myself for half a lifetime. Donald, furious, stormed out of the house, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. He left everything behind, not even bothering to take his blood pressure meds. I didn't remind him. For years I had cared for him better than his own mother probably had. From now on, whether he lived or died, it was none of my concern. I sat back down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop and calmly started drafting the divorce papers. As expected, word spread quickly to our children. Chaos erupted almost immediately. Amanda was the first to call, her voice shrill with panic. "Mom, maybe you should see a doctor? I think you're not in your right mind." Jason called next, trying to reason with me. "Mom, you're too old to act like a rebellious teenager. Dad didn't even do anything that bad, right? So he praised Ruby, big deal. It's not like he humiliated you. You're over 60. If you get divorced now, the neighbors will laugh at you." They said it all with such conviction, as if my life was just another public spectacle for them to judge. But this time I finally understood. They have their logic. I have mine. Jason was right about one thing: I was over 60. And I refused to waste whatever years I had left on a man who couldn't stand the sight of me. This was about dignity. My last, non-negotiable dignity. Even when Jason resorted to threats. "Mom, if you go through with this, I'm cutting you off for good." I simply answered, cool and steady. "Fine." On the other end of the line, silence stretched long and heavy. Threats only work on people who care. And finally, I cared about myself more. It seemed Donald couldn't stand the idea of losing. He started dressing flashier than ever, pulling Ruby onto the dance floor at the community center like they were auditioning for Dancing with the Stars. Sequined outfits. Twirls. Arms wrapped around each other. They spun and dipped in front of everyone, putting on a show as if they had something to prove. I sat quietly in the crowd, watching them pose and perform like mannequins in a shop window. When the music ended, a smattering of polite applause rippled through the room. Donald cast a smug glance in my direction, his eyes full of mockery, daring me to react. I didn't flinch. I simply stood up and slipped out while the crowd began to disperse. "Linda." He came trotting after me, his voice raised. Come on, take the olive branch. We've been together a lifetime. Do you really want a divorce? That's just messy. He kept following me, babbling nonstop like a broken faucet. At your age, do you really think you can start over? Just put up with it like everyone else does. Nobody's marriage is perfect. I said nothing. I walked home, unlocked the door, and let him trail in behind me, still talking. He plopped down on the sofa like he owned the place. Pour me a glass of water, he said, waving a hand at me like I was still on duty. I didn't move. I stood there staring coldly at him. No reply. No service. No surrender. Not this time. I turned, walked into the living room, and slammed a stack of documents down on the coffee table. The house deed and our bank passbooks. Split the house and savings. 50-50. Donald stared at them, stunned, like they were written in a language he couldn't read. Only then did it hit him. I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't throwing a tantrum. I was done. His voice trembled as he asked, Linda, why? I looked at him calmly, my tone even and measured. I want to ask you the same thing. Why was it so easy for you to walk away from the woman who stood beside you for 40 years, lying in a hospital bed alone? He froze, eyes darting away from mine. There was Jason and Amanda, right? I had stuff to deal with, and you turned out fine in the end, didn't you? What's the big deal? The big deal. Of course it was a big deal. Lying there in that sterile hospital room, unsure if I would survive the night. And realizing the man I had spent my life with had simply chosen to be somewhere else. Chosen to dance. With someone else. While I stared down death. What if I had died that night? Would he have even noticed? Would he have cared? Why would I choose to spend the rest of my life with someone who didn't choose me when it mattered? The answer was crystal clear. If we were just two people resenting each other, then divorce wasn't messy. It was mercy. Donald's face turned red with rage. His voice cracked with fury. Fine. Divorce. But don't come crawling back later begging to get remarried. I met his outburst with a shrug, my voice light, almost amused. Divorce it is. You think I can't live without you? Watch me. In the end, we finalized the divorce. I took my share of the savings and bought myself a cozy one-bedroom apartment just outside downtown. It was warm, sunny, and close to everything I needed. And best of all, there was still money left in the bank. By the time Jason and Amanda found out, everything was already settled. Amanda, of course, was furious. She called me in a huff and launched straight into it. Mom, are you out of your mind? How could you leave Dad? He's such a good man, you'll regret this. I smiled to myself and didn't bother arguing. Oh, and by the way, Amanda moved back in with Donald. Her excuse. She wanted to let Dad enjoy some family time. I almost laughed out loud when I heard that. Meanwhile, I was too busy diving into my brand new life. That day, I put on a tailored blazer I had picked out myself and tucked a crisp, freshly printed diploma into my handbag. I'd arranged to meet a few of my girlfriends for lunch to celebrate. The cafe was bathed in soft afternoon light, sun streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. We passed my diploma around the table like a precious relic, everyone marveling at it. Linda, you're officially a college grad now. Diane said, her voice full of wonder. That's amazing, another chimed in, nodding with genuine admiration. Then Susan, half joking but not entirely, sighed. If I hadn't had to stay home and care for my younger brothers, maybe I could have gone to college too. Susan had been the smartest among us back in the day. But her family's needs had crushed her dreams before they could even bloom. I raised my coffee cup, looked around the table and smiled. Then a thought struck me so clearly it felt like it had been waiting there all along. If I could reclaim my dream, why couldn't they? I set my cup down gently and spoke, voice steady, sure. Ladies, I have a proposal. All eyes turned toward me, curious. Each of us has something unfinished inside. A dream, a passion, a little fire we never got to feed. I want to start a mutual support group in our community. Something built just for us. To help each other pursue those dreams no matter how big or small. No more waiting on our kids. No more needing anyone's pity. We're perfectly capable of living extraordinary lives. On our own terms. As I spoke, I saw something light up behind their tired eyes. A spark. Hope. Something they hadn't allowed themselves to feel in a long time. The idea took off immediately. I hate being alone at home, one woman admitted, her eyes welling with tears. I'm terrified that one day I'll fall down and no one will even know. Her children lived out of state, too busy with their own lives to notice hers. Right then and there I got to work. I drafted a community survey with clear, simple questions. What's something you've always wanted to do? Do you have any chronic health conditions? What are your hobbies or interests? Next, I hung a banner at the community center and launched a free series of workshops. Everything from computer skills to public speaking, even intro to coding. Our little community started to buzz like a weekend fair. Groups scheduled regular health checkups together. Some formed knitting clubs. Others planned weekend camping trips or scenic drives up the coast. Bit by bit, day by day, our lives were quietly, beautifully, transforming. One afternoon, after a round of cards with the girls, we were just about to call it a day when a young man stormed into the room, face flushed with anger. "Mom, why didn't you cook dinner? I'm starving." He was talking to Marcia, the quietest, kindest woman in our group. The type who always said yes, who spent her entire life never denying a single request from her kids. But this time, she snapped. "Are your hands and legs broken?" She shot back, her voice sharp as steel. "I've cooked for you for 30 years. Am I supposed to owe you for the rest of my life? I'm your mother, not your maid." The words exploded through the room like a grenade. Her son stood there, stunned, totally caught off guard. His face went pale with embarrassment. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. And from that day on, Marcia was a woman reborn. She went to every gathering, every dance class, every event she wanted, without guilt. At our next card game, she was practically glowing. "My oldest son tried to get me to babysit his kid the other day," she said with a dramatic eye roll. "He's 35. And he thinks I'm just a free nanny on demand. I told him if I help, it's out of kindness, not obligation." The best part? Ever since she stopped doing everything for them, her family relationship actually improved. We often saw her son pacing around the community center, trying to track her down and beg her to come home for dinner. Whatever she said, he agreed to immediately. No complaints, no backtalk. Once we were so curious we asked her, "Marcia, what's your secret?" She chuckled, lifted her teacup and said with a glint in her eye, "They only realized how much I did after I stopped doing it." Then she paused, letting the silence build before reciting a line we all knew by heart. "It's not that life was peaceful. It's that I was carrying the burden for everyone else." The room erupted into applause. Of course, not everyone was thrilled about our little, senior uprising. At one of our weekend workshops, a man showed up uninvited and started ranting, finger pointed straight at me. "You ladies are all past your prime. Instead of playing games, you should be at home helping your families. What kind of grandmas are you?" Before I could even respond, the sisters went to war. "You just want your parents to cook and clean until they drop dead, preferably after they've tucked themselves into their own graves. You want your mom to orbit your needs forever? Try orbiting your wife's for a change. We're over 60, not over our worth. Show me the law that says we're legally required to babysit your kids." They were fast, fierce, and razor sharp. He slunk away within minutes, tail between his legs. Our community wasn't a retirement group. It was a revolution. Besides travel, our favorite activity was, unsurprisingly, gossip. And the hottest gossip always came from one of our own, ex-husbands and adult children. That's how I found out about Donald, from Diane. And I nearly laughed myself off my chair. Apparently, after Amanda moved back in with her dear old dad, she tried to recreate the setup she'd grown up with, except she forgot one thing. Donald had been served hand and foot for 40 years. He couldn't even remember where the sugar was kept. Within the first week, he burned 2 pots, broke the kitchen faucet, and left Amanda in tears. She tried to get him to babysit Caleb. After 3 days, he was groaning about back pain, sore knees, and demanded she drive him to the doctor. Amanda called me, her voice drained and sour. "Mom, I was wrong. Dad's useless. He's just a giant man-child." She paused, then added softly, "And Ruby? Not even close to you." She was hoping I'd soften, maybe swoop in and relieve her burden. But I was packing for a 3-day, 2-night trip to Napa Valley with the girls. My voice was warm, calm, almost sweet. "I've already signed up for a wine tour, Amanda. Don't bother me. I washed your dad's clothes for 40 years. Funny, I don't remember anyone offering to help me." Less than a week later, Amanda and Caleb packed their bags and moved back to her tiny apartment in the city. She had finally admitted defeat. One evening we were playing poker at the community center when Diane leaned in close, her voice conspiratorial. "Linda," she whispered, barely containing her grin, "guess what? Ever since your daughter moved out, Donald and Ruby's life has been, let's just say, fancy." I set my cards down and propped my chin on my hand. "This I have to hear." Diane chuckled, her face lit up with mischief. "Well, I asked because I knew you'd love the gossip. Turns out Ruby, for all her charm and poise, is a hardcore neat freak. The kind of woman who has color-coded mops. One for the kitchen, another for the living room. At first she kept everything immaculate all by herself. But over time even she started to get tired. She assumed Donald would be like me. Take the hint, roll up his sleeves, help out. But Donald, he stayed parked on the couch, legs crossed, yawning like a bored cat. "Do your thing," he told her. "Just don't interrupt my rest." Ruby lost it. She hurled the mop across the room. And Donald, still smug, like who else is gonna do it if not you? Don't let her soft-spoken facade fool you. Ruby, when pushed, has a temper sharper than a steak knife. One day she snapped. "I married you to build a life together, not to be your damn maid." And with that she slapped him across the face. Diane reenacted the whole scene right there at the poker table, throwing in a whiny imitation of Donald. "Linda never gave me this much attitude. Women these days, no respect." Her performance was so spot on, we laughed until we couldn't breathe. For a long time I used to wonder, would they be better off without me? Turns out, not even close. Karma knows its way around. A few months later, Donald had a stroke. After the divorce, his routine went completely off the rails. He stopped taking his meds, skipped meals, kept odd hours. It wasn't just the stroke. He was also diagnosed with diabetes. The day I heard the news, I decided to pay him a visit. Not out of guilt, but curiosity. I wanted to see what a man looks like when no one is there to care for him. He wasn't as bad as I had been, at least he could still speak. When he saw me walk through the door, his eyes lit up. "Linda," he said, voice thin and shaky, "thank you for coming." For a moment he looked small, fragile. I nodded calmly. "Just here for a quick look." What I didn't say was, "I came to see how far you've fallen." Then suddenly, that awful, familiar smell hit me. He had soiled himself. His cheeks flushed red with shame. He locked eyes with me, silently begging for help. I didn't move. That's when Amanda and Jason walked in. To be honest, their lives hadn't been going so smoothly either. Amanda had recently lost her cushy desk job and was now juggling part-time gigs with long hours and low pay. Jason's career had stalled after an anonymous ethics complaint. No promotions in sight. "Mom, aren't you going to take care of Dad?" Amanda asked. Jason added, "Yeah, he's not doing well. Aren't you going to help?" I looked at them, cool and composed. "You seem to have forgotten, Donald and I are divorced." Then I paused, let the words sink in. "And now it's your turn to take care of him." I walked toward the door. Before I left, I glanced back at Donald and said softly, like we were chatting about the weather, "Take care, Don. Hope they don't just bring you home to wait it out." The room went still. You could have heard a pin drop. Donald's face turned pale. He looked from Amanda to Jason for the first time with uncertainty, maybe even fear. The two of them just stood there, awkward and speechless. And Ruby? She was off in another neighborhood, dancing the night away with a silver-haired gentleman who wore cologne and knew how to waltz. In my mind I pictured it perfectly. That broken little family of three, each bitter, each resentful, each quietly suffering. Me. I had stepped out of that mess for good. That fall, we hosted the first anniversary of Granny's Hands at the community center. The space looked like a cozy wedding reception. Flowers everywhere, candles, soft music, the air buzzing with laughter and pride. I was invited to give a speech. Looking out at the faces of my sisters, strong, wise, worn but unbroken, I felt grounded in a way I never had before. I began slowly, my voice steady. "I'm so grateful for my late-in-life rebellion. For decades people told me what I should and shouldn't do. I'm saying this for your own good, really just meant, this is what works best for me." But one day I realized something important. We've been living for everyone else, husbands, children, parents, since we were barely adults. And not once did we stop to ask, what do I want? There's no law that says we must give the rest of our lives to anyone. Our greatest responsibility now is to take care of ourselves. So yes, if that makes me rebellious, so be it. If it means I live on my own terms, then it's worth everything. I paused, then smiled wide. So, ladies, let's rebel together. The room erupted in thunderous applause. And just like that, my story took its final bow.